What was your race called today?
So we did the King of the Harbour. It's just a Wakayama surf ski race. So yeah, pretty terrible conditions. We went upwind for 6, well I did 7.5, 8 Ks upwind into the current.
Yeah.
Turned, went downwind, but not great downwind because there was no bumps. So struggle. Didn't even do the last leg, which was another upwind of 3 Ks.
Jesus.
So yeah, pulled the pin at 16 Ks. Should have been 19. And I was just like, yep, that'll do. I wasn't going for glory, just going for training.
Is that what made you choose to do it, you think?
Yeah, I mean, I was hoping that we were going to do downwind. It's a downwind series, Wakayama surf ski race. So you'd expect they would do downwind, but the wind just didn't play ball. So
I think paddlers are gluttons for punishment.
Oh, they are. They're just like, oh, the wind sucks. Oh, well, we go anyway.
Yeah, let's go into it.
Yeah. So, yeah, real struggle street. Even the top guys were like, man, that was a hard race. There was no help downwind, which the little 8.5 K downwind section, they were working just as hard as they're going up into the wind. So yeah, wouldn't recommend it.
No. And so you use the Psycho Short?
Psycho Short and the 40 skinny, non-chopped. So that's kind of in my like savior rear wing. So it's kind of been riding it with a lot of things and liking it.
It's sort of noisy. This was my idea, by the way.
Yeah. So yeah, that was, when like the 1401, it worked just fine. It wasn't, I couldn't flatwood paddle it up into the wind.
Yeah.
Wind wasn't that strong, but it was also just choppy because of boats and all those things. So yeah, not great.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in that water a lot on the south side of the peninsula, and it's always refracted. There's ferry awake, wash. There was seaweed yesterday, like that fine grassy seaweed.
Yeah. Oh, we had lots of that.
Yeah, that was a real pain.
Yeah. And on the downwind leg, I had to go through massive patches of it, and so.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it caught it on my mast or not. Actually, it felt like I did because I had the 40 skinny on, and my system felt draggy. And I think it's because I've been using the 35 skinny so much. Just that step back to the 40, I'm like, I don't know if I can bear to use this anymore.
I mean, should we talk about tails and fuses?
Rear foils and stabilisers. And
Yeah. Those things in the back.
Yep.
Well, I guess I'll show my creations, my Frankenstein. So for the camera, that's a regular 40 skinny. So just a regular 40 skinny, and then that is my chopped down skinny 40. So this is one of the prototypes, and I just chopped it down. I chopped it down to 300 mil span, so 360 versus 300. And then what I ended up doing was just using the chopped down tips. So use the regular 40.
Oh, yeah.
And I actually just placed them in there and tried to use the curvature of the tip that I cut off to use as the profile. So sort of moved the wing tip. And then thinned out the leading edge. So that was really handy. So thin out the leading edge, didn't touch the trailing edge, and kept that nice curvature. So that's been a really good one for me. I think quite a few people have asked me about chopping down tails. And this was my very first one, and it's probably my most successful one.
It looks good. It looks quite professional.
I'm no professional. So then we also, we'll just go through, this is a 45, so just a regular 45.
Looks huge.
It is. It feels massive. And then I chopped down this like a week ago after I spoke to, I don't know how to pronounce his name, Jovan?
Oh yeah, Yvonne maybe?
Yeah. Switzerland rider? Texas rider? Anyway, he was chasing a bit more speed, but didn't want to drop down to one of the smaller rears. So he was like, hey, have you chopped down a 45? And I was like, well, I've got a prototype 45 with that I've got the production one.
Yeah.
I might as well chop down the prototype one and have a play. I chopped it down, took it out for a prone surf, and the thing was amazing. Super loose, but still had good bottom end, like the regular 45 does. But the craziest part was that it felt so slippery through the water. It was insane. I jumped onto the 40 skinny after I'd ridden this, so I back to back the 40 skinny, the full size 40 skinny. So, you know, just less span, or this has got less span but more cord, and that's got more span, less cord.
Yep.
And that felt like it might as well have been a 450 progressive.
Okay.
It was like a paper bag behind. Same front wing, same fuse, same mast, same board, same conditions. Just came in after 5 minutes, switched out, went back out, another 5 minutes, and I got off of the chop, and I was like, wow, that thing is fast and slippery. I think pairing this with one size longer fuse would be a good option though, because it adds that, like, that pitchiness to the fuse. But then, to sort of lead into one of the other questions I think you had, is going down a tail size or rear wing size.
Yep.
I feel like when you go down one, or one or two, you could go up in fuse length to gain the pitch control back, but then also gain the slipperiness and the no paper bag feeling.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's been one of my massive learnings, and obviously you've been liking the 35. Like this is your bread and butter.
Currently, yeah.
So.
And I am thinking about cutting it down just for the point of trying it, and just how small can I go before losing that rear foil plays a role. Because currently, the way I'm standing on my system, I feel like I'm standing like a seesaw of that front foil.
Yes.
I was trying to think of how to describe it the other day. It's like if you had to perform on a seesaw and hold it balanced.
Yeah.
That is how I visualize myself standing over the front foil now. All my balance is on that front foil equally, and then the rear foil is purely there for when I de-weight the system so that it doesn't drop away.
Yes.
Otherwise, I'm doing all the inputs. So my thinking is I'm not even using that rear foil, but when am I using it? So what happens if I just remove the whole thing?
Yeah.
But I'm not brave enough to try that.
I would, if you're gonna chop anything down, I'd go to. I think when I cut the 45 down, I went too far, straight off the rip.
Yeah.
Same thing, you know. I used the regular 45 skinny tips to reshape these. I had to go a lot more off the leading edge because it was such a thick, chunky section. I've seen lots of people just cut them.
Yeah.
You know, they'll cut them straight there and just leave it. And I think there's something to the thinner tips. Getting a bit.
Working quite well.
Getting a bit.
My first time having this fire going.
Good thing it's on camera.
Yeah, works.
Getting some more wood. But yeah, I would start at, like, you know, look at your spans and go, oh, I'd like to probably go to 320 if you're going to cut a bit off.
Okay.
The 35 is, you know, you just don't have a lot of cord in here, so through there. So moving the tip essentially 20 mil aside, if you went to a 320 span.
You're telling everybody to start cutting their rear foils down. So like,
I think there's benefits to be had. It depends what you ride it with though.
and who should be doing it? Do you think? Is it people that have just outgrown all of their current equipment and they're looking for the next step, maybe?
I think there's that's probably, you know, you don't want to just get a brand new rear wing and go, oh, I'm a new learner and I don't know what I'm doing. Oh, I'll just chop it.
the pros are doing this, I should do it.
Yeah. No, this is definitely like you've ridden that rear wing heaps,
Yeah.
and maybe you've chipped a corner off of it, like so many of us have.
Yeah.
And you end up cutting an extra little bit, like 15, 20 millimeters off.
Mm.
You know, I think 300 span for these is a sweet spot.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah, like my 40's cut down to 300. I call it the SP, the skinny progressive, and because it's a 300 span, I quite like the 300 progressive before the skinnies came out.
Yeah.
So when I cut this down, I just went to 300 because I was like, oh, that 300 progressive worked so well. So 300, I think you don't lose too much twitchiness, or you don't gain too much twitchiness. That's where the 45 that I cut down.
Does it compare to the 300 progressive?
Oh,
When
this-
it roll?
Oh, this thing's way easier because it's just got less cord.
Yeah.
So
But what about like the roll characteristics?
So
Because that's what you'll be gaining. Well, you'll be gaining efficiency, so you gain glide,
yes,
I guess, from cutting
Yes.
it. And then the roll. How much of the roll do you think is happening at that rear foil versus the front foil? Like, if you're cutting this down, is that actually going to affect the roll of the 1401?
yes.
Or, like, have you found that?
Yeah, so that's I love running this with the 1201. Ironically, this is the rear wing.
Yeah.
This little chop down is the one I did, the big 70k run I did,
Okay, yeah.
which you know you kind of take a stab in the dark at what
Yeah,
you're
yeah,
gonna
yeah.
ride, and this just happened to be on my
Stabilizer in the dark.
yeah stabilize in the dark. It was just on, and I was like, I'd been proning it quite a lot, so I was quite familiar with how it, you know, functioned and everything. Hadn't ridden it with the 1201, but I knew that it was quite a nice agile tail for a big span wing. So I think with the bigger span wings, there's a technique to turn them that I think a lot of people haven't. You can't just jump from a 720 Spitfire to a 1201 and think it's going to turn.
Okay.
There's a different technique that's involved, and I think it's part of the yaw axis. I do find myself when I put, if I'm prone surfing and I'm on a wave, you kind of pitch the board, you twist the board and put it on a rail with a big spanning wing, because you can't power turn them as easily.
They kick you, don't they?
Yeah.
It's a lot of G-force.
Yes, so you end up having to kind of blow off the shoulder or whatever you're on as your power source, kind of slow down a little bit, kick it and put it on its rail, and then you're coming back.
Yeah.
So you're not able to just whip them like you can the smaller Spitfires or the smaller Pros. So I think that's where with a bigger span tail or rear wing, it's if you can imagine the rear wing sliding off to the side, and then you put it on its angle. So if I'm going straight towards the camera and I need to turn, left or right, I'm going to twist the board and then put it on an angle, because then it's you're setting up a bang turn. I think that's been my success with the bigger spanny wings, versus using the same technique as you would with the small wing. So, the smaller span obviously slides in the column a little bit easier, especially if you're on a little bit of an angle. If you're really on a little angle, you can kind of still slide a little bit.
Okay.
Some people would say that's a bad thing. But we're not talking about the learners here. We're talking about people that are in tune with their gear. They know what that rear wing does without going. You can notice the difference between going from a 35 skinny to a 40 or 45 to 50 or 55 to a progressive 375 or something. So you do notice that difference. So you're not cutting down tails or anything like that if you can't figure that out yet. So I guess that's where we're leading on.
Yeah, because I don't use my 45 skinny anymore. It feels too big, and I don't imagine me going back to it. So I was going to sell it, but maybe I do just cut it down maybe it saves having to sell something, and
Yeah.
that could be the option. But I also want to cut down to 35.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think you'd have a lot of fun on the 45 cut down. Yeah, even if you just went to 300 like this one.
Yeah.
You probably have a rather fun time. It just loosens it up without having to feel like you've got nothing in the back. Because I think when you cut the 35, you'll be like, whoa, okay.
Yeah.
I only have one 35, so I'm not going to be cutting my 35
No,
down.
I'll buy another one before I cut my current one down.
Yeah, so I was just fortunate enough that I had these two that we had as photos, so just sort of like chop them and hopefully give some information to somebody else.
So actually, what will I specifically feel then? Say I've got the 1401, because that's kind of my go-to setup at the moment, or the 1201.
Yep.
And then I want to be on the silly short, because it seems to be the right fuse for me now. We can get into the fuses.
Yep.
But what am I going to feel? What specifically will I feel from the cut down rear foil?
So what I've noticed is that
We probably just covered that, but I mean just specifically to that big foil, say the 1401 silly
Yes.
short, and
Yes.
then the cut down 45 versus the 35.
the cut down 45 versus the 35. So the 35 obviously doesn't have a lot of pressure when, if you can imagine the rear wing, when you're pumping, is pushing up through the column.
Yep.
So, you're driving down and
Yep.
you're pushing, you're trying to flick that rear wing back
Yep.
up. So the 35 has very little drag there, and that's why it feels good. Because when you flick it back up, that wing is going straight up through the column. Well, you're trying not to, you're trying to keep it flowy,
Yeah, flowy.
but aggressively,
Especially
for
with
the
the short
cam.
fuse.
Yeah, with essentially with a longer fuse, that glide trying to get up is out here.
Yeah.
And you're like, it's going much deeper, and then to get it back pointing downhill, your rear
There's a
wing's
lot of travel.
way up. So it's trying to push water up and down. It might not be as drastic as that, but I feel like that's what's happening. So what you might find is that just with the cut down on, say, like this 45, this is at 265 span, so it's closer to the 250 progressive than anything else, which is kind of crazy. But this thing, you'll probably notice a massive rail to rail roll compared to the 35.
Okay. So more roll, more surfy, potentially.
Yes, more surfy, while still having, I think, decent push on your plant.
A sense that there is a rear foil there.
Yes. There won't be much, but it'll be. Let's say this one, I may have gone a little bit too far,
Yeah.
for it to be where I thought it was going to land in the sort of between all the different ones that I'm riding. I'm pretty much riding 35, 40, 45,
Okay.
and then the two chop down, 40 and 45 chops.
When do you use the 45?
Flat water paddles, that's it.
Okay.
If I'm just testing biggish wings. So
See, I would use the 35 still.
yeah, and like for me, I just put the 45 on because I just want the maximum amount of paddle ups. So I'm just sort of like, okay, I need to paddle up.
So you think it assists you?
It just gives you a bit more to push off of when you're climbing fast at low speed. So it doesn't help you once you're up on foil as much as a 35 would, but that's
Okay, yeah. I can imagine it covers bad technique, like if your foot position changes a little bit and you're not completely balanced over that front foil, having that rear foil there, if your stance shifts back,
Yep.
you're going to get that pressure still where.
So if you think about what the stabiliser is doing, it's stopping the foil from just going like that. So this rear wing is just really, and I think that's why some guys are riding bigger rear wings to go faster, because this is actually holding them from blowing out the water. Something that I've been playing around with and thinking about quite recently is a bigger rear wing sometimes makes you go faster because it's got more water flow over that rear wing to hold the front wing, because the front wing's aiming up in the sky, so, and you try and drive it downhill, so I think the rear wing with a little bit more chord, a bit more span, mostly chord I would say, is stopping the nose from just kicking in.
Okay.
So, yeah,
Sounds plausible.
lots to unpack there, but
Cool.
yeah.
What else?
When-
Fuse lengths have become important to me.
Yes,
So
I mean since we spoke last
since
time.
we spoke last, I don't think I'd used the silly short, maybe. I can't remember.
Yeah.
But since then I've used it continuously.
Yeah.
And yesterday I went back to the crazy short because I did one of my longer runs. It was a 20 to 25k run. And I had the crazy short on and I regretted it straight away. So I thought I'll size up to the crazy short just to get back further towards my comfort zone for what I've known, because I've done ultra short for so long.
Yeah.
And that step back just felt bad. Like I lost all my leverage over the foil. It took so much more energy to bring it up, to capture height.
You don't realise how much energy it takes to climb on the mast,
Yeah.
which is insane.
Even between just that one size of the silly short and crazy short.
40 millimeters, so that much.
Yeah.
I did the exact same thing. I was going for a prone maybe a week or so ago, and I thought I threw in my silly short. I've been riding the silly as well.
Yeah.
Between the silly and the cycle short for my two, mostly. Thought I had thrown the silly short in because it had a rear wing on it.
Yeah.
Turned out it was my crazy short
Okay, yeah.
that I'd used just after we did the last video.
Yeah.
And I got there and I was like, oh no. Oh, it should be fine. It should be fine.
Yeah.
I also kind of struggled because I only had the 45 skinny too, which was like the worst thing. Fast front wing with a long fuse and a big rear wing.
Yep.
And I was like, first pump back out, I was like, oh my goodness, this sucks.
Yep.
And I didn't have anything else in the car, and I was just like, no.
So I think you would only actually notice that going from the smaller gear, because for the longest time I used the ultra short and the 50 skinny, and it felt great.
Yes.
It was my dialed in setup. I used the 1180, the ultra short black advanced plus, the 50 skinny, and that was my go-to setup for most of my downwinding.
Yeah.
And then I've been using the silly short pretty much religiously with the 35 skinny. I went back and did a quick changeover because my girlfriend had the 1180 set up with the 50 skinny and the ultra short advanced plus, and I was like, oh, quick changeover, I'll just stick her fuse on my board because she was dropping me off. And it was such a horrible run, like comparatively to what I've been using now. It just felt dead. Somebody online messaged me saying, oh, it feels dead when you go to back to the longer fuse, and it truly did. Like it was boring, it was unresponsive. But if I hadn't used the shorter fuse, I would still be loving that setup. So it works until you try something a little bit more lively.
100%. I had somebody dock start my board a couple weeks ago, maybe a couple months ago now.
Yeah.
And my cycle short was on a 1401 with a 35 skinny. And I still said to the guys on the dock, like, hey, this probably not for everybody. Like, you can totally take it for a hoon, go for it. And one of the guys absolutely loves it. And now he's got that same combo. And he's just like, man, if I hadn't tried it, I would have been like, no, not for me. It's too short. There's nothing there.
And that was my thinking too. Like before I tried the silly short, I was listening to everything you had been telling me, and I thought I knew what you were saying, but until I actually tried it, and then trying it felt a bit lively, but it felt great. And then until I went back to the ultra short, that's when it clicked. I was like, oh my god, I can't go back.
It's kind of the same with the Pro Mast. Is once you've been on, say, the palm mod, you're like, okay, I'll try the Pro Mast. I always tell people, you've got to go back to your palm mod to really see the benefits.
Appreciate it,
And I think it's the same with rear wings. It's the same with fuses, whatever you're using.
Probably front wings, boards.
Yes.
Although I've come full circle with my boards again. I've
Yeah.
come back to the 7.6 axis downwinder. It's so light. It's just sitting off camera, but that's a good board, man.
Yeah.
Like, I was like, where's the board? Like, there's no board in front of me.
Yeah.
You got so much leverage with the 21 wide.
Yeah.
Like,
It's so stable.
it was so, because that's something about the fuses, is when you use the shorter fuse, getting on foil, paddling up is easy. Like
Yeah,
comparatively
it
to
just
the ultra
climbs.
short. It climbs, if you're on a big foil, if you're still using a big foil for downwinding, get the shortest fuse you can get your hands on.
Yeah.
It's a
Doesn't matter
complete
what
change.
Doesn't matter what brand you're on. Just try and get the shortest fuse, because I think that's a big thing. Is like, we obviously talk about axis a lot, but everybody's riding all sorts.
Yeah, yeah.
And it doesn't matter what brand you're on. A short fuse is going to help you, I think.
Most likely, yeah.
So whether you're on Armstrong or Uni or whatever,
Yep.
they all make a relatively short fuse.
Hopefully.
It's going to be shorter than something else. Most companies make three
I don't know.
sizes.
I was thinking about this after our last conversation, because I talked about at the end of that one how the balancing point worked over the foil for me now.
Yep.
But then I went back and used my friend's 1300, but it was a non-advanced fuse,
Yes.
and I couldn't find my balance point.
Yeah.
Like, I'd gotten so used to riding my front foil like a seesaw, where I was completely balanced over it. But when I had the non-advanced fuse, there was no balance point where you could actually feel like that ball joint sort
Yes.
of pivot.
Because the mast is so much further back from the front.
Yeah, all I could feel was up pressure, and then there was no point where that balanced. It was either up pressure or down pressure, or down.
Yeah,
like
board
falling away.
nosing down. Yeah.
So like everything I said, I think is only usable with the Advanced Plus, or maybe the Advanced.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I've ridden a bunch of the Armstrong gear, and I think the Armstrong fuse compared to the Axis is fairly similar, where your mast is there, and then their wing slots straight in to pretty much
Quite close, yeah.
quite close. Yeah, so I feel like those two are relatively similar. I've ridden a little bit of Uni gear and a fair bit of F1. Just rode one of the F1 wings this week, so I feel like that was fairly similar too. I still looked down, and sure enough, the front wing was kind of just biased towards my back foot, just a little bit, same as my axis setup. So shoulder width apart, front wing maybe just biased to my back foot, just a smidge.
Okay. Well, I could say the north gear, the mast joins more towards the centre of the fuse. At least the setup I tried and saw.
So it'd be very similar to the Axis.
And the
standard
GoFoil,
fuse.
and the GoFoil, they're actively going back, I think.
Yes.
And
yes.
it does give you free lift, it seems like.
Yes.
But the control factor seems
Yeah, I mean,
worse for me now.
it depends where your mast tracks are too. Like, do you need that?
Oh, yeah.
Do you need that extra lift, because that pushes your front foil further forward from where your mast is, and
And some people need that.
the older style boards or whatever. So
Okay, so fuses, if you're downwinding, get the shortest fuse you can, I think, would be my beta now.
yeah.
If you're using big foils.
Yes, that's a big one.
Yeah.
Big foils.
If you're out in ocean conditions and you require a small front foil because you got to have high speed, then I just can't help you. I don't know. I'm not experienced enough in that.
Longer fuse with a smaller front wings with longer fuses.
Longer fuse, okay.
Yeah.
And bigger rear foil.
You can use the same rear foil, like we're talking about. If
Oh yeah, you said size down your fuse and size up your rear foil.
so say I'm on the Psycho short and I'm on the 35 skinny. 45 skinny.
Yeah.
If I say went to the silly short, I'd go to the 40 skinny.
Okay.
And the crazy short, I'd go to the 35 skinny. So one fuse, a smaller fuse with a bigger rear sometimes. Will just kind of help you get the pitch control. but then the longer the fuse, the smaller the rear.
Okay.
Because once you try and put that thing into a turn, the smaller rear being way further out is going to create more drag, and it's harder.
So it's
to
got a
pick
lot
up
further
there.
to travel.
Yes, yes. And I think that's key, is like the fuse going up and down. That rear wing's trying to go up and down too, pivoting off this front wing. So that's quite
It opens up a lot of riding dynamics I hadn't noticed. Have you seen my latest videos where I'm trying to stall?
Yes, yes.
Like that's all come from having that short fuse.
Oh really? Because you can kind of
You
just
can control
pitch it up.
pitch at any moment, and you can put your weight through the back of your board
Yes,
to sort of ride stalled.
yes.
Whereas the longer fuse, I don't think allows that. as
No,
easily.
because your rear wing's so much, it'd be so much deeper in the water to try and achieve that.
And just the confidence of having instant mast time with
Yes.
that short fuse.
Yeah,
Like
you
I
can
feel
just-
like I can do whatever I want, and I can just dig out of it. And the other benefit of having the short fuse is a much softer pump. Like you don't require as much strength to get that activation.
I see it all the time on dock starting videos or prone videos, where you just can see the person's working harder than they should because the fuse is too long. You can see they just
Yeah.
trying to force
And
it.
probably a big rear foil as well.
And a big rear foil, yeah. Paper bag behind, plus the paper bags a mile behind.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's quite easy to spot. Which
a laboured pump.
a laboured pump, yeah. And you probably can spot it now too, because you know that feeling.
And I felt it when I went back to the ultra short. I was trying to do pumps, and I was like, this requires so much strength to try and get that activation. Whereas that short lever arm, I'm doing because I do like sort of bunny hop pumps anyway. And so that short fuse has really helped because it took a couple of sessions to get used to, because I was still doing a hard pump, and that would just blow it through the water, completely wasting the energy.
Yes.
And then I just soften my pump, and for that soft pump, I'm getting the same activation as a heavy pump on a long fuse.
Yeah.
So
because you're able to climb quick, but then also glide down at a reasonable angle, and as you say, you need time. On
not
these.
too much though. Like
Not
it's
too
pretty
much.
intuitive.
I think it's having the guts to pull the trigger on it. Know that you're probably going to have 1 or 2 sessions of learning. It might be a bit of cussing and swearing and stuff in that learning, but
I mean, it was great for me from the first session. Like it was a bit of a twitchy surprise, but everything else was great.
I guess you just need to know that it's not easy the first time. You might take it out, try and paddle up, and you go, oh my goodness, the pitch control is insane.
Well, they've got me a few times too. The first time I paddled up the silly short, I got on foil like 3 strokes and 3 strokes less, and I was in shock, and I came back down off foil because I was like,
Shouldn't have gotten that fast.
That happened way too easy.
Yes.
And then now I've gotten so used to paddling up the short fuse that when I went to the crazy short yesterday, even that difference was huge.
So we spoke about it in the previous one. I'll just touch on it real quick. And this is something I've been figuring out. There's like 2 types of paddle ups. You paddle your way up, or you paddle pump your way up. So I think the shorter fuse with a bigger front wing allows you to climb fast and just get to its quick stall speed, and then just quickly drive it down and get that first glide pump, and you're away.
And that seems perfect for me.
And I think that's what we want to try and achieve here, is like short fuse, big front wing. That's the combo we're talking about.
I think it's a necessary combo.
Yes.
Like if you've got a big front foil, you need a short fuse and you need a small rear foil.
Exactly. And these big front wings that we're working with now, whether it's a 1401 or 1201, they are so efficient through the water, and they've got a lot of lift. So you don't, I feel like people look at the rear wing and go, if I don't have a rear wing big enough, that front wing's never going to go.
Well, most people think a bigger rear foil is giving them more low end, and I would argue that now.
Yes.
So I'm suggesting to everybody they just get the 35 skinny basically.
I mean, I quite like the 40 or the 45, and I generally try and say to people, you know, if you're going to buy one rear wing, probably the 45,
Okay.
because it's quite versatile. You can use it winging, you can use it downwinding, and your entry level into a small rear wing at a, you know, the 45 is what is the 45? 135 square centimeters, 140 squares, which isn't that big. When you look at other brands that are like Armstrong, all of them. So I feel like it's, you know, massive.
Well, because my thoughts were that if you are finding you need the big rear foil, that you probably have stance work to do. You're probably not standing on your setup correctly.
Yes.
So that's the takeaway I've ended up with.
Yes.
Because now that I feel like I'm standing balanced on my front foil, that rear foil is inconsequential.
Yep.
Which I think we covered earlier.
Yes.
So that's why when I cut down my 35, how low can I go? How small can I go until I find there's a diminished return?
Exactly.
And
that's you know, what we spoke about earlier is like who's cutting down.
Yeah.
So I think that's quite key.
One other thing I was going to ask was, I saw a guy pump dock starting, and he was on the ultra short and using the 420 speed foil.
Yes.
I think it is.
Yes.
And I messaged him saying, get yourself the silly short, get yourself the 35 skinny. It's going to change your.
On the 1401.
He's on the 1401 or the 1180. I can't remember.
Yep.
Is that correct? Would that be correct for every dock starter, or is there a correct setup for your level of dock starting?
So I would say that, you know.
Have I stitched them up basically?
Well, yes and no. Yes and no. So like we've spoken about, there's a learning curve with going to a short fuse.
Okay.
There is a learning curve, but if you can get over that learning curve, then you start benefiting. So right now, if he's on the ultra short and the 420.
Yeah. 420 or the 375, he was doing a video, I think, comparing the two.
So, you know, both of those massive paper bags, in my opinion. But where they do excel is that first 2 seconds when you're either running off or dropping your board, trying to get on that thing, because it's not easy.
Okay.
The longer the fuse for when you drop your board, you know, drop starts or run starts, the longer fuse definitely helps, because that's pitch control, right?
Yeah.
You know, if your tail's way out here and you go nose heavy, that rear wing's trying to get lifted out of the water, and if it's further away, bigger, it's going to dampen it. You might have a chance to recover it, but like we say, once you master that drop, and you start dropping down on your rear wings, or dropping down your fuse lengths, you'll notice a big difference in glide and pump.
Yeah, because I was watching the video, what made me comment was how laboured he looked, and I was like, I've been through that, and I've just gone to the silly short fuse now, and he would just be doing taps rather than grunty quadricep burning pumps.
I feel so bad for people. They always go, how do you do it for so long? And up until probably 6 months ago, when I started really looking at what works and what doesn't for what different wings, and what fuses work with what different rear wings, it's all started to sort of make a lot more sense, and I can actually help people choose what they need to do, which I've been growing as a rider. I don't know all the answers.
No.
Don't want to pretend to know all the answers, but from my experiences, you know, what we're talking about now is something that I've gone through. You've gone through now a fair bit of it too, and
well, not the dock starting, but it's quite similar to downwinding in that
you're at that stall speed when you're trying to get up.
Yeah, it's that breakthrough point of getting on foil though.
Yes.
Downwinding is all about how do I get on foil, and then riding the bumps is fine and easy for most people. They can do it with the wing. It's like, how do I get on foil? And I'm guessing it's the same with dock starting. It's like, how do I establish, get pumping, and then having the correct system for the optimal, for the actual riding. So downwinding, you know, it costs you a lot because you've got a long board, a big foil to get on foil when you're beginning anyway. and then you've got to live with that for the rest of the run, even though sometimes it's 10 seconds
Yeah,
to get on foil.
and you stay on foil for an hour.
Yeah.
You got to carry that big hunk of board the whole way.
Yeah.
So yeah, 100%. There's pros and cons to different setups. But yeah, the length of fuse and size of the rear wing all make a big difference. Once you can dock start, I think, or
Okay.
once you can pump away. So it's tricky though, because a lot of people also benefit when they go to a more glidey setup, because they can utilise that glide to get off the dock further and have the time. So
Yeah, well, that's the counterintuitive thing with people thinking they're getting more low end with a bigger rear foil, is that there's more pressure there if your stance is leaning on that back foil. But that big back foil is just dragging you to a stop and
Yes.
causing you to be stuck in that low end zone.
yeah, and then you're also low on the mast too, because I find when I jump on, I'm digging myself out straight
Yeah.
away.
Yeah, yeah,
Like,
yeah,
You know,
surely.
you're getting going, everything's a bit array, you're just like,
Yeah.
you know, Hail Mary to try and get going. So being able to dig yourself out if you're on, say, a silly short or a crazy short,
That
Yeah.
is where that's helped me with the paddling up. Is I've
Yes.
dug out of so many bad paddle ups now. Where normally if I was on the ultra short, I wouldn't have had a chance. But the silly short has just jacked me right up, and just energized my paddle up.
yeah, you do sometimes, and I know this definitely, and it happens to me quite often, is you feel like a baby giraffe when you first get up on foil, and you're just like,
Yeah.
sometimes.
Yep.
Because you can climb so fast and so quickly,
Yep.
you might not
You might
necessarily
not have the
be.
momentum. To
Yes.
that
So,
water flow.
so that's where the slightly longer fuse for a smaller front wing makes a big difference, because that longer fuse allows you to pedal faster before you climb quickly. Now you can do that with the bigger front wings, but then you start sacrificing your turnability and your all that other good stuff that you gain from
Yeah.
a short fuse.
Okay.
Because a lot of the time when I've got wind against tide bumps, it's like there might be, I don't know, 2 meters between the bumps, so probably not long enough for a board. So you get up and get going off the side, and then to stay on the bumps, you've got to really work backwards and forwards. So that's where the short fuse comes in. Short fuse and sort of like my cut down 40 with the Psycho and the 1401, really fun little setup for me.
Yeah. And you can keep your speed up in those tight turns. You just pump through them.
Yeah, you can keep your, you know, I saw a really cool video, I can't remember who it was, but they spoke about the 3 different zones of a swell. So the very bottom of the trough being the red zone, the middle section being the orange zone, and the top section being the green zone, and you want to stay on that green zone. Hard with the little swell because the pocket's so small, that you're like trying to get in there, so you end up dropping down into the red zone, but then you're carving and you hit like sort of coming back up to the green zone, the very top of the bump rolling through. So
Like a wave, essentially.
yeah, essentially a wave. So yeah, that's where this Psycho short really comes to its own, because 1401 you can kind of stall turn like you've been figuring out. You can kind of pitch it up, and then it catches the energy and it kind of throws you back down the little bump. So yeah.
Okay. I was just going through my notes.
Fuse links.
Yeah, fuse. I think stick on fuse. What about the shorter fuses in the waves? Are they just beneficial?
So again,
Because you do a lot of prone surfing, right?
Yes,
So do you
prone.
want the short fuse?
same as downwinding, big foils, small fuses.
Okay.
Small foils, slightly bigger fuses.
Okay.
So you know,
Have you got some examples? Like, we've done the big foils, but when would you size up your fuse?
so I all the way up to the 1001 Art Pro.
Yep.
Sorry, down. So 850 squares.
Yep.
I'm generally riding on silly short. Once I get to the 1001, sorry, the 951, So it's quite a fast foil.
Yeah.
Depending on how much energy is coming through, I'll generally size up. So I'll go the crazy short. Because those smaller foils just have so much more turnability and pitch sensitivity, and then they're generally going much faster. So if you think about a foil going faster, you're generally pumping less aggressively because you're just going
The taps.
yeah. If you start getting into those big labour and pumps, you're over. They can't climb quick enough, and they don't have enough lift to climb quick enough. So you end up doing these short little pumps. So the longer fuse, not as detrimental. But then you'd go to a small rear wing. Like if I'm stepping up to if I'm riding the 951 on say the crazy short, I'm going to probably the 35.
Okay.
So that's my recommendation. You can get away with riding potentially even the 1051. So a pretty high aspect, but around that 1,000 squares on probably the crazy short. I've just had average sessions on a bigger fuse with the 1,001 and up. So 850 and up squares, generally on a little bit of a shorter fuse. Silly short. The silly short kind of services everything for me in a broad range.
I'm finding that now.
Yeah.
It's a sweet spot.
Yeah. So I've gotten used to it too. So that's a big thing. Like you get used to what you ride most, and so sometimes I'm like, oh, I really should size up for this rear wing, front wing, but I'm like, the 30, the silly short setup with a rear wing on it that I'll probably ride. I'll just slap that front wing on and just go for it.
Yeah.
And generally, it's perfectly fine.
It doesn't get too pitchy and big waves?
It does.
It does.
So that's where I would say go longer. So the session I had a week or so ago when I had the wrong fuse, I had the crazy short for a small wing. I would have ridden that on the silly short, and I had ridden it on the silly short already. But it was fairly big, like slightly overhead, with some good groundswell. So I was absolutely nuking down. Pumped out, and then get absolutely nuking down some of the big faces. And I couldn't turn as well because it was on a longer fuse, and I had the 45 skinny on, so it was a paper bag and a long fuse. So it was kind of hard to control, but I could go straight very easily, and there was a little bit of a refraction off the beach too, so there was waves coming towards towards me riding down the faces. So the longer fuse really held that stable, wasn't as affected by the little bumps coming out, which in turn makes a bit of energy coming the opposite way and puts some lift in that you don't need. So the longer fuse definitely for bigger waves.
Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, I guess though, if you're stuck, you're about to explode. It's going to be a slower rescue though, isn't it, with the longer fuse?
Yes.
So maybe there's some benefit to having a shorter fuse, and that you can make a quick decision. And yes, it's touchy, but you can get somewhere quick.
Yes, but it also is the reverse of that, and it can get there quickly too.
Yeah. Okay.
So it's just like, and I'm out. Versus with a longer fuse, you might have a bigger reaction time.
Yeah. Okay.
So there's pros and cons to both sides of the scale. Do you want a more pitchy setup but a bit more efficient to pump, or do you want less efficiency to pump but more pitch control? So that's where I think having multiple different length fuses really works for a lot of people, because what works for you doesn't work for me, what works for me doesn't work for you. So ironically we're both on the same now. Yeah.
Well, I'm probably just following your guidance currently, and then I'll just see where that leads me, because I'm just learning it. Basically, and it's been a huge breakthrough. The fuse length, like, forget buying a new front foil, go get a short fuse and just try that.
That's what I love telling people.
It's a lot cheaper too.
Go and buy the cheap parts, rear wings and fuses, versus buying $1,000 front wings.
Yeah, you could get 2 rear foils and a fuse for the price of a small front wing, probably.
Yeah. So, yeah, I really try and tell people to have a quiver of maybe two fuses.
Yeah.
One for winging. I think if you're winging, longer fuse is fine.
Yep.
Because you're under power.
Yep.
And
But I wouldn't go past the crazy short anymore.
Yeah.
I don't even think I'll use the crazy short anymore unless I'm trying to survive somewhere,
Yes.
like survival conditions.
I mean, if you're racing or doing, speed.
Yeah.
Speed, you're on a small foil, so small foil equals longer.
Yeah, longer fuse.
Fuse. So I feel like it's relatively easy to follow my little thought process there.
Yeah.
Small foil, long fuse, big
Yep.
foil, small fuse. So, yeah. And then
Okay.
again, try and demo them.
Yeah.
That's probably the
I guess
best
the
thing.
difference there is if you're winging or whatever, you've got your propulsion sorted, so you're not trying to get into that zone of foiling requiring some sort of knack or transition. You're just powered up, ready to go.
Yes.
You can choose whatever gear you want.
Yeah.
But when you have a transitional zone of dock starting where you need something that is stable enough for you to start
Keep
your game, and same as downwinding, maybe proning, it's probably the same when you're jumping to your feet, is it?
Yes. Proning is tricky on all levels
Yeah.
because you've got an external source of power
Yeah.
that changes every single
Yeah,
time.
yeah.
So
So do you prefer the longer fuse to getting to your feet? If you weren't sacrificing after that?
100%.
Okay.
100%.
Yeah.
Like if I had to take somebody out and say, okay, your first session, I put them on a longer fuse because the pitch control of trying to get to your feet, you need,
Yeah. You need it
5
happening
to
slow.
5 to 10 seconds to try and get to your feet.
Yeah.
Potentially.
You don't want to be
Yeah.
roller coastering.
Half the time I'm trying to get up to my feet while the foil's coming out of the water already.
Yeah.
Or the Mast is
Yeah.
most of the way out of the
Just
water already.
high speed problem solving.
Yeah, you're just like, ah!
Yeah. Okay.
So, yeah, I mean, really depends what's going on.
But then you'll sacrifice if you use the longer fuses, pumping's more difficult, your turns are less fun, so you sacrifice the difficulty at the start.
Yes.
Which is where it is for me now downwinding, like, I can start sacrificing the board, so I can use a smaller board now because I've got the skills to get through it, so that once I'm up doing my craft, it's
Yeah.
better for me. So I'll take the hit at the start,
Yes.
because 90% is on foil, I want the best setup for being on foil,
Yes.
if I can get away with it.
And that's, I think, a massive part of it is, what are your conditions? Because what do your conditions allow you to ride a lot of times? For you, a lot of the time you're riding, 1401, 1201, you might get 1121 in there. You might get some of the bigger Spitfires in there.
Not so much recently, but yeah.
Yeah, but you set yourself up for what your conditions allow you to do.
Yeah.
And yeah, your learning curve is going to be a tricky one.
Mm-hmm.
But once you get to the stage where you're downwinding and you ironing out small details, yeah, you can look at your board and go, okay, you liking the 7.6, 110 litres.
Yeah.
That's working perfect for you. 21 wide doesn't matter because you've figured out like your bumps that are moving along perfectly set up for the 1401, 1201, 1180,
And
whatever.
it's hugely stable as well. I
Yes.
love the wide board. It's light,
Yes.
and then with the short fuse, I can just get it up in the blink of an eye. So I don't need forward speed because I'm using the big foils.
Yes.
It would be a different game if I was using
100%.
ocean conditions and 1121 was my big foil.
Yes,
So,
and that's what I'm trying to get to is like you've got to set yourself up for your conditions.
Yeah.
If it happens once in a blue moon that you get nuking 40 knots, massive ocean rollers, you're probably not going to be set up for that.
No.
But you're going to be set up for the 15 to 25 knot days that you get on a regular, and that's going to be a better option to set up.
And the more experience I get, the bigger that range grows.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
anything under 20 knots now, I can probably work easily with 21 wide 7.6.
Yeah.
25 knots and up, I don't know.
Yeah.
I probably want to be on the 8.6 again.
But that's something that's not that regular.
No.
So most people, they're buying one board, they want to try and
Yeah.
use it for everything. So try and set yourself up best to suit your conditions for
Yeah.
80% of the time.
Yeah.
And the other 20%, you're either going to be able to get up or you're going to struggle.
Yeah.
And just know that it's not necessarily the setup that you've got
Yeah.
to gel.
Don't buy a setup for that one day in a million.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
you don't buy a setup that you can go out and grind every day in your local conditions, light wind, bay
Yes.
runs. And if you are learning, you don't need a long, skinny board.
Right.
It helps with board speed for getting small foils up, but you're not going to be on small foils
No.
unless you're learning in ocean conditions, and then you're fucked
Yeah.
anyway.
Yeah,
But if you're learning, get something like the 7.6 that's 21 wide. It's stable. You can get a big foil up.
yes.
Everything is the advantage. Once you're up in foiling, you've got a small board that now all of a sudden feels comfortable.
Yeah.
Um,
If you can't even stand on the board, you can't put the power
Yeah.
down, and then you can't get on foil. So
yeah.
yeah,
A couple of guys have mentioned like the new Armstrong boards. They're like, oh,
Twitchy.
I'm kind of struggling to stand on this thing. It was sold to me as a game changer. I was
Yeah.
like, yeah, you got to be pretty high level to be using a 17 wide board or
Yeah.
16 and a half.
yeah. Oh, and like I've seen a lot of people say, oh, the longer the board, the easier, more stable it is. I don't know about that. Like
Yeah, I don't know about that either.
maybe if you're coming from a 19 wide board and you're going to 17, is it a round bottom? Is it a
Yeah.
flat bottom? Like, what are the changes that you had? Like, I've gone from a flat bottom at 20 to a round bottom at 18, and I'm
Yeah.
like, whoa,
Yeah.
that was an eye opener,
Yeah.
absolute eye opener. So yeah, I want people to manage their expectations,
Yeah.
and not buy off of the pros, because
Yeah.
I hate it so much.
Yeah.
Like, it frustrates me more than anything.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of money going around, and people buy new gear and then selling it
Yeah,
second hand. So
because
it
they just,
didn't work.
yeah, and that doesn't play well for the sport either, because if people are like, oh no, downwinding's way too hard, and you
Mhm.
go, well, what board did you get? Oh, I got a 17 wide board, and I got
Yeah. It's a 7.2.
I got a 600 square centimeter foil and
Yeah.
an 80-90 centimeter mast. Talk about mast actually.
Okay.
You look at the person, you're like, but you're like 65 years old.
Yeah.
How did you think that was a good idea?
And you've got 2 hours a week
Yeah.
to hone your craft.
Yeah, you've only just mastered jibing on a wing, and you think you're going to be able to paddle up a small foil? Like,
Yeah. I was talking to Sam Loader recently about it. I was
Yeah.
like, is downwinding hard? Like, because I find it pretty easy now. But he's like, dude, you've got pretty much all the time in the world to go out when the conditions are on. If
Yeah.
you've got a family and you can only get out an hour a week, you might not be able to learn it.
no.
Like, it is actually quite,
Yeah, I mean, I'm working 5 days a week.
Yeah.
I start work at 8, finish at 5.
Yeah.
It's dark by
Yeah.
5.
yeah, now.
So, like, I'm only foiling on Saturdays or Sundays.
Yeah.
And if I'm lucky, I do both, but if I'm unlucky, I don't do any.
Imagine if you got 3 kids and a mortgage.
Yeah, well, I've got a mortgage, but I
Yeah,
have
yeah.
3 kids.
Yeah.
But yeah, it would be a nightmare.
Yeah.
And you've got to go when the conditions are good,
Yeah.
and then you've got the logistics. And, yeah,
So with that in mind, you really do need gear that works. Not gear that looks sexy, but gear that is,
suited to your needs.
yeah, you need the Corollas.
Yeah,
Not the Ferraris. You need a Toyota Corolla or
Yeah.
a Toyota Land Cruiser.
yeah. Something that's gonna get you up on foil without
Yeah.
having too much struggle.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll talk about masking.
Yep, do masts, and we can
um,
get into that other stuff that works for beginners in another talk as well. I guess like
yeah.
truly talk through what is good gear for learning. Maybe
Yeah.
we did it the last one a little bit, but
Yeah. Masts. So you've been riding the 75.
yep, shorter mast.
Shorter mast has obviously been quite good for you because
It is because I ride naturally low, and it removes that out of the equation. So now my thinking is, don't dive the board into the water. That's all I have to think about.
Mhm.
I don't think about riding high. But it's been detrimental because I've been going back to the 80 and then riding at that same level, and now I'm just sinking my foil under,
yes,
and I can't manage to get out of the water again. So.
yes. And I think with the 75, you'll be with your stalling sort of game that you're playing at the moment, which is cool. I think that's such a cool way to talk about the stalling side of things. That's such a good way to learn what that foil's doing.
Yeah.
And that's why I try and tell people is, and we spoke about it last time, doesn't matter what gear you got, you know, whether you're winging, supping, proning, downwinding, get comfortable on it in any way possible. And doing that stalling technique is perfect because then you've got that feeling of like where the tipping point is, and you just drop out it's got.
The next 3 videos will be out by the time people see this.
Okay.
So there's another 3 videos coming of that stalling, but I don't know if I can release one of them because I've got some proto gear. But we'll see.
Oh, fancy.
And it's pretty obvious.
Oh, okay.
I've had to hold off on a couple of videos. So.
Oh well, something exciting to.
I'll send you a link.
Okay. So, Mast. So I've been riding 80, the Pro Mast.
Excellent.
Yeah. There's no need for. If I was riding a big foil, then I'd ride my 90 because I know that the paddle up's going to be easy. I've just been riding the 80 for everything.
Okay.
You know, I'm not turning hard, so you're just cruising along, hunting bumps, so chasing hard down bumps and stuff like that.
You'll be turning even less hard with the shorter mast.
Yeah.
There's not much room for those tips.
Yeah, I rode a 75 F1 mast a couple days ago, and I felt like I couldn't leave the water's surface.
Yes. Yeah.
I literally felt like I couldn't leave the water.
I'm watching the videos of me and I'm like, I can hardly see the label.
Yeah.
But it's like, if I go any further,
the rear wing pops up.
Yeah, everything pops out, especially with the short fuse.
Yes, because it's just like, bang.
Yeah, I've had suction breach down on my rear foil a few times.
That's crazy, isn't it? It's just quite a cool feeling, but also like, ugh.
Yeah, I managed to actually look back on one of them and I could see the vortex rolling off of the fuse. Like it had sucked all this air into the fuse and then it was spiraling off the tip of the rear of the fuse.
Wow,
yeah, it was cool.
That's cool.
It happened twice in a row, like while I was doing it, watching it. I was like, holy shit.
That's epic.
Yeah.
So yeah, 80
Mast.
for me. Yep. Like we spoke about last time, however the companies measure them and stuff like that.
Variation.
So that's cool.
Well, my friend Guy and your friend too, he likes the 105 for towing, and those guys towing are quite adamant that they need that longer longer mast.
Yes.
I don't know if that's true because last time I towed with them, I used the 80 and I didn't breach. I breached once, and we were in the same conditions, but that was head and a half maximum.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you do need the long fuse mast. It's probably good for.
I think it comes down to what you're used to. I've towed with Guy as well.
Yeah.
And I think we were on the 699 when I towed with him. And it feels amazing. You can really crank turns.
Okay.
With a longer mast, because your mast is, when your mast is longer, your lean over angle's better, which means that the foil pops out further, but more vertical.
Yeah, which is how you want it.
Yes, the more vertical you can get that front wing, the better.
Yeah. So the less that air is going to come to your fuse.
Exactly, it's sending it down there and you over.
Yeah.
So I think
my problem with the longer mast is the disconnect from the foil.
Yes.
I feel like it's a mile away. I just feel uncomfortable. I like that foil as close to my feet as I can.
Yes, that's because you've ridden the 80 or the 75 so much that you just like, when you go to something longer, it feels so foreign.
Even the 90.
Yeah, even the 90. So it just comes down to what you're used to. Like, you were used to the ultra short, now you're on the silly.
Yeah.
You could go.
You've ruined the ultra short for me.
I know.
And the crazy.
It's quite hard for me because I've experienced what I've tried to impart on you and what we've spoken about, but it's not until you try it that you actually go, oh,
there's a reason for this.
Yeah. It's not just Dylan telling me that I should. It's like, oh, I can see the benefits.
There's a lot of function behind it.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
usable function for most people.
Yes.
So.
And I guess that's quite hard because a lot of people are looking at, say, the top guys in the world and going, oh, they're writing this or that or that, so I should be writing that. And I guess what I'm talking about here is I'm writing this, that or that. You guys should be writing this, that or that. So I guess it's quite hard. I kind of contradict myself by saying don't buy what the pros are writing, but then I'm saying,
But I've been your test case now, so you're a pro writing, but your suggestion worked for me, and I'm far from a pro level athlete, so it works. And then as we're sharing it with everyone else, I'm telling people get a silly short, but it'll change your writing, especially if you're downwinding on a big foil.
So, if this is going to help people, then I'm so happy about that because there's obviously a lot of comments about fuses on the Axis page or probably on all the different pages for different foils. So,
and there's theory, and then there's the practicality, right? It's like, how does it actually work for you?
Yes.
Like the theory of it is great, but like I knew the theory, tighter turns, blah blah blah, but I didn't realise all the gains until actually going through it. So.
Yes. So that's quite cool. There was a question I remembered that we had spoken about earlier.
The only one that I can think of is how's your old man's progression going?
Oh, yeah, okay. Yes, obviously he's working 3 days on, 1 day off, 2 days on, 1 day off at the moment. So he doesn't get a lot of time to foil, but he just pinched one of my psycho shorts. I think I spoke about it last time.
I'm not sure.
Anyway, he just pinched one of the old ones, and he loved it. Big foils. He's run the 1180 most of the time, and he has noticed what you've noticed. The pump's better.
Yep.
You can climb the mast.
Yep.
He's dropped down to the 45 skinny.
Yep.
He was running the 55 all the time.
Yep.
He's finally got, I think he said he got a 4 for 1 on Thursday,
Nice.
which is crazy.
Yeah.
I think his best has been like a 2 or 3 for 1.
Yeah.
And he said, he just mucked up with 5 for 1 because something. But yeah, he's absolutely loving it. So he's my really good test subject too. Just like you are, but you're the downwind side and you're at a much higher level than he is. But for everything. But he's subsurfing a lot. So I like using him as my like test dummy.
Allison's my dummy.
Yeah. And so
Test them.
I just go, alright, this is what this should do.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, but this, that, that. I'm talking through it.
Yeah.
This should do this. He'll go out, try it, and he back-to-backs a lot of rear wings now because he's like, I started him on the journey of like, he always asks me, 50, 55.
Yeah.
Oh, what are you riding? Oh, 1180. 50.
Yeah.
Oh, 45 or 55. Where are you riding? Oh, Raglan. Oh, there's a bit of power there. Oh, 45.
Yep.
Bit more speed and glide. And,
Yeah.
but then, I think now he's like, okay, no need for a 55 anymore.
Yeah.
45, maybe 50 if he's really scratching. But he's really loving the psycho short. So
that's good for me. That lets me know that I should get a psycho short.
Yeah.
Because I've been a bit afraid to commit. I tried to buy one, but they didn't have any.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, tricky to get. I hold on to this one at night in my bed because everybody wants it.
Yeah. Good self-defense.
Yeah. I just use the pointy end.
Yeah.
But yeah, obviously it's
Don't use the square end.
Yeah. Obviously an unreleased, or I think Adrian said
they're coming.
Special order only kind of thing. I don't think the shops are going to hold them, but they potentially will special order in ones for
I think there's a lot of stock of the silly shorts too because people aren't buying them.
Yeah.
Whereas it's crazy.
I think the crazy short, I've recommended it to a lot of people because it's quite versatile.
And it probably feels good for everyone, until you go down. And it's that same thing. Once you've tasted the nectar of the silly short or the 35, you can't go back.
Yeah,
So.
100%. So yeah, these are quite fun.
Yep.
But, you know, might not be for everyone.
Yeah,
So,
that's true. We'll find out.
Yeah.
People will comment and say that was shit, or else you'll see them for sale. Maybe.
Oh.
Maybe I can buy them.
Yeah. These are smallest one there, so they're the cheapest one of the Axis.
I hope the camera's still going, dude.
Oh shit.
It might not be.
Is the fire still going?
No, not really. I think that's enough.
Yeah.
Wrap it up. That's.
Yeah.
I think we pulled it together again at the end.
Yeah.
It's a lot of in-depth fuse talk.
Well, I think it's probably one of the most important things.
I would agree with that.
Rear wings and fuse combos can make or break a setup. And I've ridden lots of people's, foil setups on prone or dock starting, whatever. And as soon as I get on it, I can't think about the front wing because the front wing's not doing what it should because the rear wing's wrong, or the fuse is too long, or it's generally too long or too big.
Yeah.
I haven't gotten onto something and thought, oh, this thing's way too small.
Yeah. Okay.
So I need the
Wait till
guys.
you try my one. I've cut the 35 down.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, thank God.
Is that 1%?
No, it's still running, so that's good.
Oh.
Do we need to wrap it up somehow?
Oh, I don't know. Do you want to?
If you can, get one of these. Support PPC.
Yeah.
Great pedals.
Yep. 100% support.
Axis works for downwinding. I promote Axis for downwinding because even a lot of the guys riding other gear move to Axis to learn how to downwind and pedal up.
Yeah. I have noticed a lot of companies are making, that intermediate to advanced foil for downwinding.
Yep.
But the hard part is the learning curve.
Yeah.
And you see a bunch of pro riders and stuff like that moving to, code or whatever, that have been on Axis.
Yep.
And I think that's purely because they've had the learning curve with the Axis gear. Not saying the Axis gear isn't good enough to get you to the top level.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of guys see the new shiny stuff and go, I need that.
Yeah.
There's no better mast on the market.
It's such a good mast.
So I would.
Yep.
Yeah.
I wholeheartedly support Axis because I think the gear's great.
Yes. 100%. It'd take an absolute miracle to get me off of Axis.
Yep.
Yeah. Well.
We'll see. Maybe you'll get a good offer.
Well, I'm not that good a rider, so I'll just carry on.
Nobody's going to pay me anything.
Yeah, no, not worth it. But no, I really like working with Adrian and Evan.
Yep. I've not met Evan, but I know Adrian quite well now.
Yeah, and
much being neighbours.
So no, I do like the Axis stuff. But in saying that, I don't want to say that Axis is the be all and end all.
No, I mean all the brands work now because everything's like V3.
Yeah.
Like, everyone's come through that stage of it's all getting to the even the shape of the foils now are all the same.
Exactly.
That moustache.
Yeah.
Foil.
Kind of gone a little bit. They're still there, but not as drastic.
And they have that flap on the back now.
Yes.
For the low speed lift.
Yeah, the camber.
I'm interested. Is it camber? But it's like an aeroplane flap. When they extend the flaps, it has that reflex. I haven't really tried them very much.
Yeah, you've kind of been boring your way on Axis.
Yeah, I've tried Vinny in the past, but that was all V1, lift, a road lift. Tried Sab for a while. I did a lot with Armstrong. Recently tried North foils. They were good.
Yep.
But the Axis just has that range selection. All the rear foils are the same profile. Step down, you can really dial in. You try to Sab when I was using the Sab. If you step down in rear foil, it was a different bloody shape.
Yeah.
So they didn't have a step down where you could progressively adjust your system. You had to keep doing different rears, same as Armstrong.
Yeah.
I can't remember what they were. The 230,
the 232,
232, and the 300.
Yeah.
Everything was like a different
V
shape.
tail. Yeah.
Oh, the V, yeah, the flying V.
Yeah.
That
So
was a noisy one.
yeah, they're all the niche tails. So
Yeah, so
but
that's what I love about Axis. And people complain about Axis having too many options. I'm like, I want more.
Yeah.
Like, I want a 1301. I think that would be an amazing foil. A step between that 1401 and 1201. I think there's space there because the steps in the lower ones are closer.
Quite closer, yeah.
So
and yet they're quite far. They're quite close, but also quite far apart.
Yeah. Well, definitely the 1201 and 1401.
Oh, Mast. Yeah, that's the biggest gap out of all of them.
Because the 1201 is, I consider that actually a small foil for me.
Yeah.
Like I need conditions to be pretty cranking, or like chest high, for to really get that thing functioning. Anything under chest, the 1401 covers it.
Yes.
But a 1301 will give me that variation of like yesterday's run. It was a grower. Like where I went out, there was no fetch at Takapuna. The bumps were 1 foot. When they were stacking, they were 1 foot from trough to peak.
Yeah.
So I had to get through that for about 3 Ks.
And then
then
they stack.
Finally the 1201 worked, and then by the end of it, it was 1.5 meters to 2 meter swell. So yeah, so I was kind of overfoiled. So but that's the problem of, call it a grower, not a shower.
Yeah,
You know, like it's not like you just go out straight into the wind and you've got the same full blown conditions.
Yeah.
If you're starting at a low fetch area, you've got that full range. So yesterday, a 1301 would have been perfect. It would have got me through the start, saved a lot of pumping.
Yes.
It would have been perfect in the middle, and it would have been overpowered at the end. So the same as the 1201 was.
But an easier start.
But a much easier mid-range.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
let's petition Axis. Everybody comment about 1301s.
Yeah. Adrian will be.
Message Adrian direct. Adrian Roper. He's on
He's gonna
Facebook
kill you.
and Instagram a lot. And just tell him, yes, we want a 1301 for the big guys, and we want a 1301 for the downwinders. It'll be the big guys 1201. I think I mentioned to him recently.
Okay. Oh, we can only go up, right? Like foils are just like progressing so fast that it's like
that's true.
we look at the 1201 and that's over a year old.
Yep.
Which is crazy.
Yeah.
It's like old technology. I reckon we're due for a revision on that already.
Maybe, yeah. I was riding that one for a long time. It was the one in Fiji.
I love it.
I had it paired with my 1300 for small wave. And then the 1201 was my big wave foil.
Yeah. I love that 1201. I obviously have a soft spot for it because that's the foil that sort of
gave you a world record.
Yeah, and so that one definitely has a soft spot in my heart. But
and it's a great foil.
Yeah. I mean, 1099 put me on the map with Adrian, which that's another great foil. So yeah, I mean, I think all of them are good foils.
Yeah, they still work. Like people are still using HPS. People are still using the arts. BSCs, yes, still a good learning foil. The pump and glide. One of the local guys here still uses the 1010 pump and glide for connecting waves and stuff. He said,
I've never ridden one of those before.
I haven't, and I would, because he reckons it turns as well as the Spitfires, but it has the bottom end of like a pump and glide, so you can turn like a Spitfire, sit in the pocket, and then link up 6 waves if you're not even a pumper.
Wow.
So get a 1010 maybe for downwinding as well.
Interesting. I'll have to try and squeeze that in.
But then you need a red fuse. So. Maybe.
I've actually got a 1 of 1.
Oh yeah.
It's like a short red.
Really?
Yeah. It's the only one I've ever seen.
Oh shit.
And it might be the only one in existence.
Yeah.
So yeah, pretty cracking up.
Nice.
But yeah, thanks for having me again.
Pleasure.
It's always fun to talk through all this because I think it really does help. If this goes up onto YouTube and then we can really repost this when people are like asking questions about what we just spoke about.
Yeah, and that I think we've condensed it down to rear foils, fuses, some front foils, a little bit more downwinding.
Yes. But it crosses over to dock start, winging.
Yeah.
All of that stuff. So
But you can't be too general as well because people are hungry for specifics. But you can't be specific as well because
there's
it's
such a
so
range,
varied.
such a range of skills, weight, and age, riders.
Even yesterday, halfway through my run, I was like, I'm having to take completely different lines now because the conditions have changed. And I'm the same person, same gear, same body of water, same wind, but all of a sudden I was getting refraction or something from a different area. And I was like, different lines. How am I going to tell somebody how to do this?
Yeah.
And suggest a way of approaching it when it's completely different to 5 minutes ago. So anyway, it's so feeling and subjective and personalized. And I said it to a couple of guys recently in the comments, like, follow your own knowledge. Like, if you think something is right, follow that, because don't just watch a pro for advice or somebody that's not you, and don't just listen to the salesperson because they just want to sell you the latest.
Yes.
And
it's so condition based. That's what we spoke about. Buy the right gear for your area.
Yeah.
Because that is so hard to look at Hawaii conditions and get conditions for harbour runs.
Yep.
But there's a few things like paddle, like the stiff
Yeah.
blade.
I can recommend this to everybody.
Both of us are riding the PPC paddles, which are really good. I actually liked that it had the adjustable shaft today because I did a lot of prone paddling, a lot of paddling on my knees, and a lot of paddling standing up.
Yeah.
So I was adjusting the blade for paddling on my knees and paddling standing up. So
And it's great for your camera angle, getting that extended shot. Like I've tried the fixed pedals and I don't get a good enough shot.
Yeah.
So I do like a fixed pedal
has
now.
to be extended.
Otherwise we can't get the footage to the people.
Yeah, they need it. Hungry. But yeah, alright. Thanks for having me again.
Alright, mate. Be good. Be
Thanks,
safe.
guys.
Be safe out there.